Virtual reality is an exciting technology, and I'm going to discuss the type of impact that it will have on lives in the future. Since birth, we have learned and come to know the world through our senses: taste, touch, smell, sight, and hearing. These sensory inputs allow our brain to process the flow of information from our environment and make sense of what we perceive as reality. In other words, our entire experience of reality is simply a combination of sensory information processed by our brains. Virtual reality allows us to introduce our senses to a computer-generated virtual environment that we can explore and interact with, thus the term virtual reality. Five types of virtual reality are shown on this slide. Augmented reality is an interactive experience of real-world environment where the objects that reside in the real world are augmented by computer-generated perceptual information, sometimes across multiple sensory modalities. Examples include Pokemon Go and Snapchat filters. Immersive reality is a perception of being physically present in a non-physical world. An example would be virtual reality games with a head-mounted display and other sensory accessories. Non-immersive reality is when the viewer does not get fully immersed in the reality the device produces. It won't give a viewer the experience of being present in a non-physical world. An example of this is Wii Sports. Virtual reality could be the solution for several issues. Companies have embraced virtual sharing to promote remote access and collaboration without relocating or traveling to one physical location. For example, when a company has remote workers from different geographical locations, it is necessary that they coordinate and complete tasks on time. In this situation, virtual reality saves companies unnecessary travel time and costs, creating a more efficient project. Virtual reality is used for training purposes to help gain experience. The use of virtual reality in medical education allows medical students to learn how to conduct delicate surgical procedures without endangering the safety of real-life patients. Also, VR in the military is used to train soldiers by giving them the experience of combat zones without putting them in danger. Persons and patients with differing physical abilities can have the opportunities to use VR tools to experience the thrills of various environments without being confined to their physical locations. Notably, virtual reality is being used to enable paraplegics to build back their brain functions and regain control of limbs. This is one of the most exciting uses of the new technology. Think about the impact this could have on people's lives. Typically, a technology is adopted because it will have a positive impact on people's lives. This is no different with virtual reality. As just mentioned, virtual reality has several applications that can improve our lives in the future. Two of the biggest areas are healthcare and education or training. In addition to the applications discussed on the previous slide, VR could impact the general education world because it is a tool that allows for immersion into a new environment. And if utilized correctly, it can expose students to things that would not be possible otherwise. This could create an immersive learning experience from elementary schools to universities to technical schools. Virtual reality is poised to break through in all of these areas because of advances in and wider access to technology, advancement in chip technology, and increased social responsibility. Virtual reality is expected to enhance different areas in the future and could really displace or disrupt the current gaming industry. Although virtual reality is poised to be the future, there are certain industries and companies that are more prepared to monetize the opportunity now. The sectors that are currently best equipped to monetize on VR include, but are not limited to, chip makers, media and entertainment, and gaming. Some individual companies that are most likely to succeed in the VR space are NVIDIA, Alphabet, Facebook, Microsoft, and Sony. Sony is the leader in virtual reality currently, thanks to gamers who are fans of the PS4 system and its virtual reality device. Facebook bought Oculus several years ago to make themselves a leader in virtual reality as well. Facebook is likely to monetize VR content by creating a platform similar to how Apple created a platform for mobile app developers. Microsoft, with HoloLens, is becoming a bigger player in the gaming industry and is marketing for professional uses such as architectural engineering. Even with all of this opportunity, there are issues that could limit virtual reality. The high cost for performance, technological limitations, and lack of content are three issues that may limit virtual reality. Low and mid-tier products do not perform well enough to create an experience that keeps customers interested, and the better products have a high enough upfront cost that the market is not very large. One issue with low quality products is they tend to create nausea and motion sickness. There are currently issues around the technological advancements that would improve virtual reality, such as cellular and Bluetooth technology, processing chips, and the amount of power headsets required. As technology improves, these issues will diminish, but for now, they are eliminating the proliferation of VR. Finally, there is a lack of content for current adopters. The content pool is low due to a small population of experienced programmers and underdeveloped training programs from schools and software creators. This should change as the number of virtual reality adopters increases because it should create a network effect. Although there are many positive and useful aspects of virtual reality, many unintended consequences could arise from continued development and use of VR. These consequences can be broken down into four distinct categories: personal versus economic consequences in both the short and long term. We will talk briefly regarding each of the potential unintended consequences of VR. Studies have proven that common symptoms due to the prolonged use of virtual reality can include dizziness and nausea, eye soreness, and rarely but most seriously, seizures. Furthermore, beginning users may often experience a shift in priorities and social lifestyle. As VR use continues, individuals will run the risk of addiction. More seriously, however, they may run the risk of not developing proper hand-eye coordination. It's been proven that the brain is very fluid and can rapidly adapt to its surroundings. The more time spent using VR, the more that feels like real life to your brain. When looking at short-term economic consequences, there will most likely be a negative impact on businesses that aren't prepared for VR. For instance, multiple travel firms might take a hit due to the ability for consumers to virtually travel anywhere in the world without spending time and money to fly and stay in a hotel. Additionally, virtual reality could change the relationships or partnerships in both business to business and business to consumer situations. Long-term economic consequences of VR will include shifts in the global tourism economy as consumers invest less time and money into visually experiencing global travel through VR. With that will come additional rules and regulations regarding virtual reality usage that will govern over the technology and potentially protect those exposed. Finally, the workforce may transition to primarily virtual reality applications. This could leave the world innovating in VR, but not in real life. Despite the hype over the last few years, adoption of VR has been modest so far. However, this technology seems to be on the brink of mainstream adoption in the next few years. Various industry reports estimate that the global VR market is likely to be between $35 billion and $200 billion by 2023. The compound annual growth rates are estimated at a whopping 30 to 60%. To estimate the market size for the US, we made some baseline assumptions using the US's current market size in the industries that are likely to see growth in virtual reality adoption and some likely trends. Based on our calculations, we estimate that by 2028, the US market is likely to be between 54 and 107 billion. most likely around $74 billion. Our compound annual growth estimates for the US are also slightly conservative compared to predicted global rates. We estimate the US VR market may grow between 19 and 27%, with a most likely CAGR of around 23%. Currently in the US, VR is most prevalent in gaming and military applications. Based on our research and calculations, over the coming years, entertainment, healthcare, and education should join gaming as high growth sectors. Military growth will be more stable. If we assume a baseline CAGR of 23%, the US market size may be about $15 billion in 3 years, $23 billion in 5 years, and $74 billion in 10 years. A brief comment about our market sizing approach. Our baseline assumptions use the worldwide growth estimates from various sources and the current general US market sizes in the specific industries. With the principles of the central limit theorem, we estimated the bearish, most likely, and bullish market sizes for major VR applications. With increased investment in the field, rapid evolution in associated technologies like machine learning and imaging, significant improvements in data processing and storage capacities, and mind-boggling proliferation of mobile devices and connectivity, virtual reality is indeed in our future.